Okay, this is a game. This is a game on the T54E1 on Himmelsdorf encounter. T54E1's a clip tank, pretty good burstiness, reasonably good DPM, and kind of a long reload time for what you would like, of course, but it's still pretty effective as a burst tank. And on Himmelsdorf encounter in particular, I usually don't push hill at all. Usually you get enough people to go hill without you, and the west side of Himmelsdorf encounter becomes incredibly important, and that's what we're going to try to point out here as soon as I can get around my teammates. And so very predictably, most of the team goes to the hill, which is not entirely surprising. You see that a lot in pub matches. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up over on this D line. Ideally what I like to do is get over into this D3, D4 position, because it allows you to do a number of things. It allows you to cover cap, allows you to get intel on what they send across, and it also allows you to shoot up at the hill. So what you'll notice at this point is that we literally have one T37 out here on the west. We have me coming out here, and every single other person is over on this hill area over here. We have a 1390 that's hiding in the C8 area, so he's not going to really provide that much intel. This RU-251 spotted this 12T here, so that we don't have a whole lot out here. We don't know what their dispersion is like either, but we know that we're going to be strong hill. And so in this type of configuration, this is what I consider the weak side, right? This west side is the weak side because we've basically got the T37 and myself. This east side is what I consider the strong side. And so when you play the weak side, a lot of what you want to be able to do is just get intel without overcommitting. And so I'm going to go down this middle area here and see what I can find. And so we see that there's a T43 coming across here. We know that the 12T's in the middle already. We know that they have a T37 on the cap. We know that their ISU is up here. They have a T34 on the 7 line. So I'm going to push forward to this D line a little bit. And so at this point, what you'll notice is that the RU starts coming across this way, the T34 starts coming across this way, and the KV3 starts coming across this way. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on. We still have the majority of our tanks up here. Our 1390 ended up YOLOing down this middle here, which is, I don't think, going to work out well for anybody involved. Well, okay, maybe for these guys. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in here where I'm safe, and I can do a number of things from this position. I know that there's a T43 right here. I know that they have a couple of guys up on the hill. I just want to be sure that those guys can't shoot me as I get into position. And then all I got to do is go over to this other side of this little hill here, and then I'll be able to get shots on these guys if they try to push around the little church castle that's up there. And that's the sort of the importance of controlling this west, is that you can prevent anybody from well, you can shoot at people that are trying to get around that castle, which really inhibits them from moving forward. And then I just want this T43 to think I'm loaded, so I'm gonna just scroll back and forth, pretend like I'm trying to poke him if, you know, the tanks that are behind him can't get in. So in the meantime, what's happened is that the T34 that went this way came over here, which is fine because they have a T54 in here. So these guys can potentially encapsulate the T54. They can potentially kill the T37. I have the T43 right here. They pushed up this 8 line. These guys are going to be able to beat a KV3 between the two of them. So that's going to be short-lived. We've still got a lot of guys on the hill. We have certainly more committed on the hill than they do. But our hill has not yet actually fully engaged. So, you know, we haven't come around this side. We haven't pushed into them at all yet. And so this is still a pretty slow developing game from the east point of view, but we want to be able to hold this on the west, and at least we have a little bit more on the west now than we did before, because we have the T34 and the RU over there. So I need to get rid of this T43 because he's spotting me, and I don't want to get shot from the hill. And so I'll take the hits from the T29 and the other guy in order to get rid of him. And then now I can focus more on these guys that are after the KV3. And so the T37 is on the cap. but we have a T-34 there, so that's not too big of a deal. And the T-37 is basically dancing around that building, it looks like, which is making it difficult for the T-34 to actually hit him. But the T-34 is on the cap, and in encounter mode, you don't need to reset. As long as you're on the cap won't move anywhere. Unfortunately, these guys are losing to the T-54, which is going to be a problem, and I'm almost reloaded now, though.
Enemy is hit. Enemy armor is destroyed.
And so they're actually pushing into us a little bit on the hill, which is to our advantage, but it's fine. We need to start worrying about the cap at this point. This T-34 is the only guy left, so the T-54 is going to be able to kill him if he wants. Also, these guys are eventually going to leave over here and go over there. So that's something that we need to be concerned about. So we need to start heading out over here to start protecting the cap. But as long as that T-34 is still alive, we'll have at least a little bit of time.
It's a trap!
That T-29 beat that Centurion that's over here. And it looks like he was headed north on the 8 line, which is fine. That makes it easier for us. And so I know the T-34 was still around here, so he's probably in that same general area. They've got 2 on cap now. The T-34 is dead. And so I need to get some resets here. And so in this particular configuration, so they have 2 on cap, which means a minute and a half. If the T-54 gets on cap, or if the T-34 was already, you know, coming down over through this 2 line and got on cap, we'd have roughly 45 seconds to reset. So you look at the position of all of our tanks here, all right? So luckily we actually have some of our fast tanks still alive. In 45 seconds, the T-54 or the T-44 could theoretically get over here. They'd have to bust ass, but they could do it. And so this is the problem with pushing hill, is that even if you win hill, and we didn't really win hill that convincingly, even if you win the hill, you can still lose the game with a very, very minor amount of tanks here. Look at what they have over here. They have a 12T, a T-37. The T-54 is a solid play on this side, although I don't know that I necessarily would have played the repair shop over here. But that's fine. He could have done a lot of damage, particularly to our guys on the hill, and also he could have killed that T-34 a lot earlier as well. But this is sort of what I'd say the importance of playing the West on Himmelsdorf, is that all of these other guys that are up here are essentially inconsequential. It doesn't really matter what happens up here in terms of who's going to win or lose the game, because if you let these guys cap out, even if you crush up here, if you take too long to do it, if these guys cap you out, you lose the game. There is nothing you can do about it. And so that's sort of the problem with playing hill, or with sending too much to the hill. So I know that all I really need to do is get 1 reset maybe, and I'm going to be loaded, and I could potentially clip out this T-34, but that's not really going to help my team too much. So I'm loaded right now. He's only got 1500 health. The potential of my clip is about 1600 health, so as long as I damage with each of my shots, I'll be able to kill him. But if I do that, then I'm not going to have any shells to reset. Really, all I need to do, because these guys are going to come back, all I need to be able to do is either take 1 guy off the cap entirely or reset both of them. And as long as I can do that, it doesn't matter if I die, it doesn't matter what happens, we will probably win this game. We've just got too much left to lose it. And so, after I miss the 12T, so at this point, what I noticed is that the T-54 is not here. So maybe the T-54 started heading this way, and then you see the T-29 is way over here. So the T-29 went up through this 8 line, and then he went west across here instead of just coming across here. And so even though we're sort of encapsulated by enemies, they're all kind of far away. We know where the T-34 is, so he's probably going to come up behind us. We know where the T-29 is, and we think the T-54 will be able to come over from this side eventually. So what you need to do when you're encapsulated is always push out in one direction. For me, the easiest direction to push out here will be towards this T-37, where I have some cover to actually potentially use. And then we see that the T-54 came out of his little shell, and so that's going to be our focus.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
Because he's basically the fastest guy. The T-37 is fast, but he's right next to me. He's not going to try to do too much. And then all I'm trying to do is get these guys to wait, right? You know, I've got teammates coming, so it's not that big of a deal. The T-34 just fired, so I know that I can go on this side of the building. And it's just a matter of figuring out which areas you can expose. So I've been reloading this whole time.
Permission to engage. Gunner, ready to fire. Enemy vehicle destroyed. Enemy armor is hit. Penetration.
And then that's pretty much that. The importance of having somebody over here who's able or willing to reset, and they could go the same, you could say the same thing in the other direction. If we just brought more over here where we could have killed the T-54, then we could have crushed over here and put cap pressure on them and forced them to have to come off the hill, and a lot of their slow tanks wouldn't have been able to make it in time. But it's important to have somebody on this west side, and particularly in encounter modes. You typically want to shade towards the cap mode in encounter modes a little bit more, simply because of that. You can get capped out on a lot of maps, because essentially what they started doing on a lot of these maps, like if you look at steps, for example, they'll set the spawns on one half of the map, and then they'll set the team goal on the other side of the map, and there will basically be this triangle between the two. And essentially what they anticipate is that most people in pubs will be in this line that's between the two spawns, and that's what ends up occurring. And so a lot of what gets ignored is what happens over here, and so it's really important to still play these areas. Okay, so if we look at the stats, so we're able to do a lot of damage. Most of the guys that went to the hill were able to deal some damage as well, which is potentially good. Unfortunately, our T-34 that went to the west was not able to do a whole lot. So we didn't get a whole lot of damage out of the guys that went to the west for the most part, other than myself, and I played in the middle for a good portion of that in order to try to keep their guys honest. But it's important to be able to clear off, like, you know, their guys that pushed up the 8 line, the JT88, T34, T29. It's important to be able to clear those guys, or at least slow them down to prevent them from just driving in. And so even though we won the hill, it took a little bit too long, and those guys, if I wasn't there, those guys probably would have been capped out, or easily could have been capped out, if, you know, they just put 3 on cap, because they controlled the west. Our guys weren't going to get off the hill in time to reset it, and so that's a huge advantage. So even though their team lost the hill, you know, they can still potentially win the game, and that's what's really important to remember in those types of encounter situations. Okay. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful for playing Encounter in general, Encounter Himmelsdorf in particular, and a little bit about the T-54 and sort of the decisions you make in terms of what tanks you shoot at. You know, we held our fire on the T-34 in order to reset cap, and then where to go. You know, a lot of that game we spent surrounded by multiple enemies on multiple flanks. You know, when we're on the D line, we had the T-43 proxy lighting us, the T-29 covering him from the other side, and then the JT-88 and the T-34 pushing up behind us. And then once we cleared that, we still had to push into the cap, where we were surrounded by the T-34, T-54, the T-29, and the T-37. And so it's important to be able to push out there as well, and practice using your tank defensively. Watch and pay attention. You know, when their T-34 fired, I know that I can be on that side of the building so that I get a little bit more time to reload. And it's just a little bit about biding your time like that. So anyhow, I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.